Hi everyone, welcome to a new season of Understories with me, your host, Lindsay Fowler. I hope you've all had an amazing summer. This season kicks off with a chat between myself and the wonderful Matt Dixon, who's the owner of TallBoy Interiors, which is an antique and vintage retailer. And he's also the founder of Form by TallBoy, where he designs his own pieces. Matt has such a passion for vintage furniture and the unique character and stories that come with each piece. He values craftsmanship and quality in both vintage and modern furniture, and he's quick to emphasize the sustainability and value of antique furniture compared to mass-produced modern pieces. Matt is ambitious, and his business has grown over the past 10 years since he founded it at the ripe old age of 20. He talks about the challenges of running a business and the importance of staying positive and true to oneself over the last decade. A lesson for us all, to be honest. His long-term plans are to move into designing entire spaces, not just furniture, and I cannot doubt for a second that he'll do it. It's a great way to kick off the new season, and I can't wait to thank Matt enough for his time and candidness about his experiences so far. Before we get started, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening to this. Tell a friend, and of course, don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified about future episodes. Episodes drop every other Tuesday. And now, over to Matt. Matt, it's really nice to have you on Understories. Thank you so much for coming on. You run TallBoy Interiors. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Of course, yeah, great to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited. We have two businesses. TallBoy Interiors is one of them, and Form by TallBoy is our most recent one. TallBoy Interiors specifically focuses on antique interior design, where we source pieces of antique furniture from around the UK and into Europe, and then supply them to interior design trades who put them into beautiful projects and really make the most of unique, high-quality, sustainable pieces of furniture. And then Form by TallBoy is our latest creation, and that is all about bespoke manufacture, where we use all of the same things we love about antiques, sustainability, tradition, and natural products, and create our own designs, as well as working with individuals to create their designs.
I love this. And also, you started this like 10 years ago, you said. So you were 19 when you started TallBoy Interiors.
Exactly. TallBoy Interiors is 10 years, nearly 10 years, which is mental. Just always loved antiques and interiors. And at that age, you have a lot of overconfidence that I could do this. And thank God I did.
Yeah.
Fine.
I'm kind of jealous of your confidence.
I had great support from my family. I can't take all the credit by any means, but I just love doing it. And I knew I wanted to be my own boss, and that was the first thing. Was a case of buying and selling, and antiques were quickly the thing that I found were most interesting and most linked to my passions of interiors. So just sort of went with it and didn't know where it'd end up, and hoped it'd do well, and thankfully we're doing okay.
Yeah. What sparked your passion for vintage furniture? And I mean, there's obviously like a timelessness to some of it. Some of it could be a bit weird, but like some of it can be awesome, right? So what is it about it that's really... You think all it's awesome?
I think it's all awesome. Every last bit. No, I agree exactly. I mean, it was just a case of interior design is a great project, a great passion of mine, and something I've always done in my parents' house and my own house, and tried to make every space unique and different and personal to me. And antiques were a really good way of making it even more unique, because you weren't going to buy the same piece that your neighbour would have, or very unlikely. So you would just be able to create something that was truly you. And I think it sort of antique furniture shows as much about you as the way you dress. I think you can make a lot of an interior with vintage and antique pieces. And like I say, each thing's got its own story. It's got a history, which all adds to its interest for me. And it's got an aesthetic that's often copied, yet to have the original, again, to me, is a real benefit. And it's made from materials that you just wouldn't make furniture from nowadays, really, not unless you were willing to spend on them. It just seemed to fall into a nice gap in the market at the time. I was, 19, a very young antique dealer, as the trade would refer to me as, the baby of the business, probably, but now 10 years on, still one of the younger ones. But
I was going to say...
hopefully more established, but still, on the younger side.
Yeah, because I imagine actually, I think when I think about antique dealers, I think of like, middle-aged men in dusty warehouses, finding pieces for people. And that's probably a huge generalization. But I think there's probably something really interesting in that, because especially for someone being young and actually really caring about vintage furniture. I mean, is it the stories initially about these pieces that attracted you, or what is it about them that's like really kind of
Yeah, I mean,
caused
it's
you,
all,
that got the
it's all
spark?
that. It's just, yeah, it's what they are, where they've been, who's handled these
Yeah.
before. What are these? What if these could talk and all that? What would they say? What stories
Yeah.
have they heard? Yeah, you're very much right. I think there was a very, probably still is, a strong thread of antique dealers that are this more generic
Mm.
older person who has a
Mm.
real sort of particular choice of furniture, be it English country house, be it the true antiques, the brown furniture. But
Mm.
over time, and more so now than it was 10 years ago, I think there's been a lot more, and I've certainly realised there's a lot more sort of younger to middle aged people who are using antiques in such a creative way, making interior
Mm.
design something very different than what it probably has been known for before. And that is
Mm.
the antiques interiors market. We're not um, the stuffy old warehouses. We still have dusty warehouses, don't get me wrong, but we're not
Sure.
as stuffy, old fashioned as that. We like
Yeah.
to be quite creative, and there's not just me. There's hundreds of great dealers out there
Yeah.
who make the most of beautiful piece of furniture, and hopefully, people can see how they're shown in new ways and realise that just because it's old, it's not old fashioned. It's just what it
Yeah.
is. It's just an old piece of furniture.
This is interesting in that way as well, because, there's, bringing vintage into the modern, like into a modern space, like how do you, because you obviously you have an interiors bent, and you do think about the sort of holistic space when you're supplying materials and supplying furniture for people and things like that. What are some of the things that you look for in some of the older pieces and how they match with the sort of the more modern spaces?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And not everyone's going to have an 18th century house to accommodate 18th century furniture. You've got to think
No.
a lot about how does a modern house take an old piece of furniture. And I think a
Mm.
lot of modern houses, a lot of people do like to play their decor relatively safe in terms of colour palettes and schemes.
Mm.
Therefore, an antique is a really good way of introducing a little bit of character, a little bit of difference. And from that, you can really take off a few key
Mm.
things of it, be it the texture, be it the material, be it the colour, and then add them into the room in other things, be it small pottery, upholstery, seating, things like that. Um,
Mm.
but I think you can mix old and new. Like I say, a lot of
Mm.
people, massive homeware brands copy antique furniture and really try their best to create something authentic, yet it's never going to be
Mm.
authentic. So in modern houses, it can take antique furniture. There's no rules with design, and I like that. I think it's very much a case of if you're confident in yourself to do something a little bit different, or
Mm.
you're confident in what you're putting together, you can really put some interest with the use of antique furniture. For me, it's always been
Mm.
about patina and age and something that shows its true character. I don't necessarily like things to be too refurbished. Obviously, practical, obviously, but in
Yeah.
terms of character and condition, I'd rather be an 18th century piece of wood looking like an 18th century piece of wood, showing all of its
Mm.
scars of age. And again, that it adds so much interest. The more people come through your door, they do tend to ask a question about it, and it's a
Yeah.
conversation point. And it really does sort of bring a room together, adding not all antiques necessarily, but a good number into a space.
I imagine then you're saying the stories of the pieces come into play quite significantly when it comes to the purchasing of them and all that. Like, what are some of the interesting stories about pieces that you've come across in your sort of sourcing of stuff? I imagine there's some crazy stuff that you come across.
I mean, so it's sometimes very hard to know the full stories. Obviously, we don't
Mm.
always get the joy of buying it from
Of
the
course.
place. We try our best, but obviously,
Yeah.
the world is pretty well picked over in those original places. And thankfully, a lot is now being protected. So, you do what you can. We've had things in the past that have come from monasteries, which are beautiful, big, large tables. You can imagine the sort of atmosphere of that place. They're chunky oak furniture, and especially Italian furniture. They use wonderful, old walnut and oak to create some truly stunning pieces. And they'll have had a life in, monasteries and churches and things like that, which I love that. We did buy a piece fairly recently, a large bookcase. I think that's a bookcase or something, a kitchen unit. Circa 1920 in age. We bought it from the family whose grandfather actually made it. And he made it in 18th century style. He took a lot of time to sort of create this effect of an 18th century piece, but only made in 1920s. And yeah, okay, that's a reproduction, but it's made entirely by hand by a guy in the 1920s with an incredible amount of skill. And it's a massive piece of furniture, beautiful piece of furniture. And meeting the family, talking to them, seeing it in the French house we got it from, that's just stunning. And it's pieces like that you just go, wow, I would not have seen this, found this, and heard about this, not in this job. So, that's why I love it.
Oh, it's fabulous. I had a question. I was thinking it through when you were speaking about like the this element of modern furniture and, you're saying modern makers will often pre-produce sort of these, they'll be inspired by sort of older things. But do you see in the different, like, is there a sense of quality that's like in craftsmanship that you see in the more vintage stuff that kind of is missing in the more modern stuff then?
Yeah, I can't say to all modern pieces. I know a lot of great
Of course, there's some great stuff.
I'm
Yeah, of
also
course.
trying myself in the work of form to be, I suppose, a modern producer of antiques of the future, ideally. But yeah, absolutely, this is the thing. You go and try and buy a table from a generic homeware store that'll be made of, modern materials like a plywood that's then got like a laminated veneered finish. They'll charge you the same price I'll charge you for a solid oak table. It's not like you're going to get it necessarily any cheaper, but you're definitely going to sacrifice your quality. Yes, okay, people do like modern, clean, don't think about pieces sometimes having a previous life, and that's each their own. But for those that love an antique piece or love a piece with character, and certainly for quality, most sort of mainstream modern furniture shops do not create anything like the pieces that we can buy in antique. But it is, again, there's so many amazing craft people out there, and with the work we're doing for Form, we're working with blacksmiths who work in all the traditional ways that they've always worked doing blacksmith, and they make things from forged steel. We're working with upholsterers who use still sustainably sourced beech frames, which again, that's as close as we can get to the original sort of beech, birch, oak frames of the sort of antique pieces, and they use slightly more contemporary materials, but again, this traditional natural element to it. So rather than using horsehair, we can do horsehair, but also we use things like rubberized hair, which is same sort of feel, but it's better for sort of people's, if you've got allergies, obviously it doesn't have any effect on that for a start, but it has the same principle. And everything we're doing as part of Form is to try and create these beautiful modern pieces made traditionally. That is the aim, and there is, as I say, a good handful of people also doing that in the world, and that's great to see. I mean, it's not going to just die off, and these talented people are going to get lost.
That was what I was going to ask you, actually, because I was thinking about if you're bringing in people who have these traditional skills. There is some conversation in the craft world about the sort of the dying out of craft, and that it's not being passed down. I mean, there must be few and far between, though, of people that can do these things. But are they passing on that information to a younger generation too? Do you think it will sustain? I guess is my big question.
I mean, I hope so, for sure. I think it'd be great if it does. We're trying, I say, to advertise the fact that it can still be done at a reasonable price. You're not going to have to start charging the earth to buy a sofa. You can do it to still be very much in comparison to the modern rubbish that is made by the mass-produced companies, and they'll charge a certain price, and we'll try and match that, but give you the better quality. We are lucky. We've got a mixture of ages who work with us. We've got Sam, our blacksmith, who's probably similar age to me, 29, 30s, and he's award-winning, renowned over the world. He really is an amazing, talented individual, and right on my doorstep, close to where my shop is in Malton in North Yorkshire. So that's a find. That's luck more than anything else. But he is a young person who I'm sure is trying his best to pass it on to younger people as well. I know there's a lot of artists and younger artists who are using the work of metalwork, silversmith and blacksmith. So that skill is definitely being maintained, which is great. I know from seeing on social media, a friend of mine who's a very seasoned interior designer, his son has been studying furniture craft, and he's, again, younger than me, so he's going to come through as a true traditional furniture maker, which, again, that is great to see. And then with my sofas and seating, the guys, again, the range of ages from in the 30s up to the 60s, you need that, I think. You need the age to pass the experience down. And for the most part, it is, and I hope it maintains, and I hope it still becomes financially viable to be sustained. But it needs the support of individuals.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think that's sort of part of it, isn't it? Because it's like I guess the side of it is like, the younger generation or, middle-aged and younger, when it comes to buying first pieces of furniture, we always default to like IKEA or, it's like college and, you could do that thing or whatever. But it's like, but imagine if you could have I guess that's the question, isn't it? Really, is that do you have people who are sort of younger who are looking for this kind of stuff because they want to buy something that lasts and sustains them, right? Because
we do
sustainability element, right?
Yeah, there's so many, without wanting to keep blowing the trumpet of antiques, because I am obviously biased, but principally, there's not many, if any, negatives to buying antique furniture. It is entirely sustainable. It is it's already been made. Even by transporting it up and down the country with a courier, it's still way less environmental impact than buying cheap rubbish from China and overseas, and obviously things that are made mass produced in factories. Those contribute heavily to CO2 emissions, whereas antiques don't really affect anything like that. Also unique. I think I am seeing, again, my age group. Yeah, okay. It does come from probably a financial stability point where my age group can't quite invest in the sort of luxury antique market, the high end pieces, but they certainly will look to eBay and find nice, interesting vintage finds that they can either upcycle themselves, they can salvage and repurpose, and you can still get a bargain or two on eBay. To be fair, so I think
completely. It's quite shocking because I sorry to interrupt you, but I was just thinking, when my husband and I moved in together, 100 years ago, we bought we found a G-plan dining table on eBay for £100.
Yeah.
And it was and it was in really good condition. It even had a little, and it had 4 dining chairs that came with it. And we were like, why is someone parting with this for?
Exactly.
But you can find these pieces. So I guess that's the thing. It's don't necessarily default to just go buying your table from.
No, if it's truly a budget thing, but you want to keep a bit interesting, you want to be, sustainably conscious, you can buy vintage relatively affordably. We try our best to be, I suppose, cost effective across all price points, as you can be. But we are, TallBoy is a high end brand in that respect. But those, again, it's some of those things that there's always going to be levels in which you purchase things, be it jewelry to vehicles, houses, furniture. So we cover a nice area, and I think that people who move into their project house, their maybe forever home, they do look to us, which is great, to find those pieces that will last the test of time. Again, it's things that they don't necessarily think they'll be parting with for many, a number of years. And what we try and do, and it is always difficult, is predict how design markets are going to go. I don't want to be buying things and saying things are going to be out of fashion within 6 months. That doesn't help anybody. It isn't always possible, but I buy what I like, and that hopefully means I've got a good sort of eye for what's coming through. And because they will survive, they're not going to fall apart on you. They are great things to have around your house. They'll always have a value. This is one thing to also mention about sort of modern versus antique, is that the moment you're bored of a modern IKEA table, all right, it didn't cost you maybe a fortune to buy, but all it's going to do is go to a landfill site, contribute again negatively to the environment, and you get no money back. At least if you buy a table for, let's say, £600, the chances are that you'll get some of that back, maybe half back, maybe 3/4 back, subject to how well you bought it. If not more, sometimes you can make a profit if it's gone up in value for whatever reason. So antiques at least give you the chance to recoup some money, and the pieces aren't going to end up in landfill, and they're going to be repurposed, reused, enjoyed again. So many positives of buying antique.
So interesting. I think I love antique furniture. I'm more of a mid-century type of person when it comes to what I look for, but it's just, I think that's the thing, is there's just this really sense of quality, and just, I don't know, I think maybe it's also the history just kind of sits with it. You can kind of feel that it's just been around for a while, and it has that. Yeah, but it's really interesting. So, as I spoke to you when we first spoke, and I was telling you about the podcast, it was, it's all about the creative business side, right? It's how do you, we talk about what we do. We're always really curious about what people are up to, but it's also that bit underneath, when we talked about the idea of building a business at the age of 19, and basically how we're all basically clueless when we're starting a business.
Absolutely.
For you, what's been the most surprising thing since you started TallBoy and you started Form? That's quite recent, right? The Form stuff is quite recent.
Form's officially, I suppose, about 6 months to a year now. It's sort of grey area on where it started, but it's still very recent. We've just sort of launched our second full collection. Our first collection went live at the start of the year, so it's probably been 7 months officially. The important lessons are just to trust yourself, I think, because you can easily be swayed out of things. People have opinions. They always will, and sometimes it is good to listen. When I was 19, you do look to those that have been in the business for 20 plus years, and you think, I can ask them for some advice. And don't get me wrong, most of them do intentionally try and help you. Others, don't either choose not to for whatever reason, or it's not advice that you necessarily need to take. I've taken on a shop and a physical retail space in a market town, and they might be told me not to bother with that because it's like the retail market in towns is dwindling. And but it isn't just about that. It's about that brand recognition. It's about that sort of brand elevation and quality to say that you do have this physical space to be, if people come and see you, if they want to come and see you in person, showcase what we can do. There wasn't just about making a profit and making money on the sales from the shop. It's about what it did to the brand. I don't think everyone was sort of thinking from that point of view. So most important thing is listen to advice, but don't always take it. I think still use your confidences and see what sits right with you. And that's definitely been the case for TallBoy Interiors. I'm sure will be very much the case for Form as we progress.
Yeah, it's true. I think people, even the most well-intentioned people, are always coming at it from their own experience and context, though, as well. And I think it's important to listen to it, as you say, but not see it as that, right? Not see it as like, oh yeah, I've got to do what that person says because they are so successful in what they did. It's like, well, actually, but you have a different journey,
This is the biggest thing as well. They built businesses without social media, which is again an incredible thing for me to imagine how you would go about doing that. But it was a very different world in the interiors market maybe 20 years ago when they had to go physically to the markets, physically to the fairs, do all the networking and meeting people in the flesh. And we did do our fair share of that at the very beginning. But then social media was such a strong part of growing the business and making people see us from all over the UK and eventually all over the world, that you sort of go, but I can't relate to what you're saying then, because what you worked for you then definitely won't work for me now. And again, that's that sort of, you got to just trust in yourself a little bit and not get arrogant with it by any means, but just sort of go, right, I think this is best for what I want to do. You know where you want to be. So at least try it first. There's always going to be fallout plans and backup plans if you need it. But with that first port of call, trust yourself, go for it and see where it takes you.
I love that. So that's the thing is, like, I think sometimes we would deliberate on things. We're not sure what the right motive, the right way forward is or whatever. And you sit and kind of chat and mull it over and talk with everyone else that you know about it or whatever. But I always say to people, it's like, just make a decision to do it. And then you have more information. You can actually make a better decision and with it, or you can take a different route or whatever. But
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, you have to kind of trust yourself on these things.
You do.
So what are your big plans for Tall? Like, where do you want to take it?
As far as I can. I don't know. I mean,
what does that mean?
I really want to take TallBoy Interiors to becoming an interior design business, where myself becomes an interior designer. But I haven't had the opportunity to do a full blown interior project for anyone but my family yet. I think age plays a part in that, and I think experience. I've never worked for an interior designer. So therefore, trusting me to take on a project will take someone a fair bit of trust. I am a qualified interior designer. I did do a sort of online course on that. So in a sense, that's given me the basics. But I appreciate there's a hell of a lot more to it. But for TallBoy Interiors, there's a lot planned in the next few months. We're trying to sort of commit to some, not a rebrand, not a big change at all, but just to really grow up the business like I have. From being the baby of the antiques business now, hopefully being somewhat established and standing on my own 2 feet a little bit. I want to make sure TallBoy becomes sort of known for being, it's not just Matt's business, its own brands and its own it's got its own theme and it's got its own thread of items that link together. The shop will also have a facelift that was done 4 years ago. Colour schemes have changed. My ideas of the shop have changed a little bit. So that is all immediately going to happen in the next 2 or 3 months. But the big picture is for TallBoy Interiors, go for interior design. Form is my biggest project at the minute. Form, I say 7 months in, could not be happier with the way it's going. It's a lot of confidence. It's very confident. I suppose what's the right word? It's good for building confidence in yourself when it works. So it's a very easy thing to let you get you down when it doesn't, because everything that I'm doing is my own thing. It's my own designs. It's my own colour choices. It's my own sizing. Yes, okay, we're using antiques as sort of like our reference points, things we've had success with, things that I wish I could have bought 10 of because they sold so well, that sort of thing. But fundamentally, each design, each way we're marketing it is all down to me and my family who are involved as well. So you sort of think, if it goes really well, you go, pat on the back, that was great. If it goes wrong, you go, what did I do wrong? What have I missed here? So that has potential to be more than just a retail of our own designs. We want to become a manufacturing company for interior designers who maybe have that tricky space that needs something specific for it, be it a sofa, be it a table, be it a mirror, whatever it is. And I want to take Form to similar heights to TallBoy Interiors in the next sort of 12 months, and hopefully again cement it as a design business, a manufacturing business that they can call upon to create unique things, properly made from sustainable materials.
It's really, I mean, in some ways, it's almost like it's even like a more creative outlet for you than buying and selling the finished, right? Because it's like, as you say, it's like almost like it's your design choices that you're putting out there, and whether or not they're going to be accepted, or it's really scary.
It tests you in a lot of ways. Exactly. Yeah. They sell themselves sometimes. If something is 18th century and it looks great and it is, what it's meant to be, a table, whatever it is. Yeah, okay, I'll do my bit, and I have to find it, and I have to photograph it well, and obviously, do all my side. But the antique is itself. My own designs. Yeah, it's very much a case of I hope these people like what I'm doing, and I hope that they can see what I'm trying to achieve, and I hope they don't think I'm just chancing my luck. I hope they appreciate that it's a big committed effort, and like I say, so far so good. Touch wood and all that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think probably you're not coming at it completely blind, right? You've got all this amazing knowledge and experience of like these reference points, right? So it's not like you're just going and being like, oh, I'm just going to make a table this size. It's like, no, I know it works. I know it's beautiful. I know kind of how these things come together.
There's hopefully some background knowledge that I'm finding when I go into it. I think, again, for bits that we are referencing from the antiques, yes, you can go, right, well, that size that's best for that is usually these. Therefore, base everything around those sizes, the design will come. And that has worked so far. There's definitely a bit of background knowledge I've got from TallBoy Interiors that I can now implement into Form.
Yeah. Oh, I had a question that just left my head. Oh, that's really annoying. I was going to ask you about... Oh yeah, that was what it was. I was thinking about, there's so many interior designers. I like, I work with architects and interior designers, in my business. And I think, especially from an interiors point of view, there's always this discussion about always opening a shop. Like, should we open a shop at some point? But you kind of come at it from the other angle. You've got the shop, and it's like you're trying to move into the interior space. I've not actually seen that before. I mean, maybe it happens more than I realize, but I've not actually seen that.
I don't. I mean, again, that's not a conscious decision. I must admit. If that happens and it does lead that way, it's pure luck. But again, with an antiques background, I had to have. I felt like it'd be good to have a physical show space to show the furniture. And what I didn't have before the showroom was anywhere to sort of put together the room settings that I had in my head, other than sort of like the best I could in in a temporary loan property or just somewhere that wasn't particularly the best, if you know what I mean. But so the showroom gave me the opportunity to put together room settings and divides and light it a certain way, and I hoped show everyone that there's more to antiques than just the pieces. The fact that there can be an interior design element involved. So we took the shop on for retail purposes, and I do hope with time and hopefully a bit of luck that we'll get the interiors design element to come. Which to have the base in Malton's a great place to be, and the building's an old chapel. It's stunning. I'm really not in any rush to leave. So, it's a great space, and whatever we grow into there, it's perfect.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, also I think there's something about the physicality of going into a shop. I know we're all about like buying stuff and online and all that kind of stuff, but there's something about going into a shop and sitting on the furniture, feeling it, having a conversation with you, I imagine is probably a great selling point, because you can, you're so passionate about it, obviously. And it's like, you can talk to people about the story and like how it would look and how you could style it or how you could do stuff with it. I imagine, and also having it in a chapel is probably really, it's very dramatic. It's very like theatrical.
Well, this is it. We saw the building in its absolute state in 2018, but knew that with the work that we're planning to do with the landlord, it could be an incredible place, and it has been. I mean, we got unlucky with opening in the first week of March 2020. COVID then hit and took all of the committed marketing efforts and all the money that we put into it. Slightly were wasted because nothing could happen, understandably. But we got through that. It was fine.
Yeah.
But it does, people want to come and see things. Seating's a really tricky thing because we can do upholstery and we can do anything to a chair. And we do sell chairs in calico, like prepped, ready for upholstery. But we don't sell many in finished fabrics because 9 times out of 10, I can choose a grey fabric and someone can have had that. It's in blue, whatever. So we leave it plain. They can choose a fabric, but that's when they need to come and see it for the most part. If they're private customers, interior designers are different. They know what they want and they know what they're going to get. And we're quite, we overstate everything on our website. So condition reports, sizing, we do our absolute best, every last detail. And again, touch wood, over 10 years, we've had very few issues. So it's really quite rewarding when you put all that time and effort in. So. Yeah, but the shop does serve a purpose, a very good purpose. And I'm not there all the time. When I am there, it is great to see a lot of people who come through the door who don't even think of antiques in any other way than a bargain hunt or a cheap sort of thing that grandma once has. And actually come in and go, wow, that's a stunning piece of furniture. That's 200-year-old. And they can see it in a new way. And that really was the aim. And I'm glad that we're seeing that come through now. So, yeah, hope that continues.
Yeah, amazing. So you've been doing TallBoy for 10 years now. What have some of the highlights have been since you started?
I don't know. It's always great. I mean, there's very few. I suppose, honestly, I know it sounds cliche, but everything I do, I love everything, and it goes without saying. But the biggest thing we did in sort of like from transforming from just going to fairs and buying sort of smaller bits and whatever, we started to go and buy in Europe. Buying in Europe is another game. It's unbelievable how European markets and also bringing American markets as well really respect antique furniture, certainly more than the fairs in the UK. I don't know why that is. I don't know why the UK doesn't get the same level of love as markets do. Honestly, really, it's we go over with a number of UK interior designers and UK antique dealers, and none of us can answer why the English markets don't get that same level of rush. If you ever go onto my social media, you can see some of the videos of the French fairs, and you are stood in crowds of, probably like 5,000 to 10,000 people, all at the gate, 8 o'clock, ready to get pushing, and you this big crowd, and it's like a level playing field. It's potluck, but the atmosphere and the energy is unbelievable. It really is, and that's such a great thing. You've got to keep your wits about you, and make sure you don't trip up on the way in because you'll cause all sorts of problems. But,
trampled.
Yeah, exactly. But in the UK, it doesn't seem to happen. It's a real shame because the UK fairs were where I started out strongest, and certainly where I met as many people as I could do before social media became a thing. But from what I understand and what I've heard, very few of them are growing. They're all sort of maintaining, maybe a little bit on the decline. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think it'll always be that way. I think they will come back, but I think they need to take a look at the European markets and see what they can do to improve that. But that's going to be a highlight, buying in Europe. In terms of like product finds, we found a beautiful piece of artwork, 2 bits of artwork from the same house that could be absolutely polar opposites to each other. One was a 8-foot painting of Jesus, 19th century. I appreciate that this art is not everyone's cup of tea. But when you're faced with 7-foot Jesus, I think you have to at least stop and stare. So
yeah.
And that was a
great big house. Like someone just hangs that in the house. People just walk in and go, "Wow, that's a big Jesus."
I actually ended up in a converted church in Portugal, of all places, hanging over their new dining table, which was just amazing to see that. I didn't go myself, but I did see it on a picture. But that was great. For the same house, we found a painting of a moose that we didn't know anything about. We just loved it, and it was a modern, contemporary piece of art and massive size. I thought about keeping it for myself. I had it hung on a wall, and I photographed it. And within seconds on social media, the whole page is sort of lit up with comments and messages, and I had phone calls. And I inadvertently bought I think it was a Les Dixon, same surname as me, but not related, original piece of artwork, and I hadn't realised what it was. And that was quite a nice find. It was a good surprise. Once we could do the research and make sure we had the right thing. So they're the sort of standout products and the standout experiences of the European markets. They are just amazing.
Do you ever get people coming to you with things like, "Oh, I found this in my grandfather's attic. I mean, it looks like it might be something." Like I'm thinking like Antiques Roadshow vibes here. Like, do you ever get people come to you? You do.
always there's a lot of rubbish, for lack of a better word, to
Sure.
sift. We get offered Singer sewing machines on a pretty much daily basis, and unfortunately, no one's buying Singer sewing machines anymore. It's mantle clocks and that. I know there's a market for it, and I think if you've got that market, great, fair play. But we do. We actually had 2 house calls this week. Again, 2 beautiful properties, and you find all sorts. We went into one house. It's a townhouse in York, the town we live near, and we found an original 19th century haberdashery counter. Which, it wasn't the grandfathers in the loft. It was a piece they knew they had and knew they bought. But just finding those pieces, it don't matter where you find them, they're really hard to come by. So finding a bit of original 1920s Parisian haberdashery shop fittings in that same house that used them as decoration around the house was just brilliant. And then in the afternoon, went to another house, a very large stately home in near Malton, and they had a wonderful mid-century interior in a Georgian house. Very nice to see such a juxtaposition of styles. And there's some beautiful leather-topped brass drink tables, which you had 4 of them. And they're not massively rare things, but they're still beautifully made. And it's nice to find just good, honest pieces, and then see some amazing properties as well. It's all part of the fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was thinking, have you read that book, The Hare with the Amber Eyes?
I can't say I have, I'm afraid.
Do you know the book? So it's by this guy called Edmund Duval, I think his name is. He's English. He's a sculptor. But it's basically a story of his family told through latrines and Netsuki, and told the story of the pieces as they go through they come from a Jewish background, so it was all through the First World War and the Second, and the French and the Second World War, and it's really fascinating. But I kept thinking about this book when you were talking about these pieces that go through these stories, and I'm wondering if anyone. I mean, it'd be so much fun to kind of. I don't know if you ever get to find out more stories about them and blog about it or tell stories about the pieces.
It would be good. It is such a hard thing to do, and that sounds like an interesting book for sure. And I think that if everything could talk, the stories that you'd find would be unbelievable. Right? And when we do get lucky enough to find pieces from a house that it's been in for hundreds of years, we do our very best to keep that story with them. We often leave little notes attached to paintings, attached to chairs, and just send it with piece to those that have bought it, in a hope that story continues, because that is the only way now of maintaining it once it leaves that original place. So tricky, but we love doing it, and hopefully, we'll see more of that.
That's really nice. So what are some of the challenges that you faced in your business that how did you overcome them?
So challenges, there's always challenges on a weekly basis in different ways. I'm sure every business owner knows that it's not just plain sailing. In terms of specifics, it's really hard to say. I think that we've got it down to a T now, where I say when we first started, like I said, if we did miss off a condition report on a piece of furniture, inevitably going to get sent back, and you were constantly fighting with losses because you had to pay for the return delivery, and that was a very quick learning curve at the age of 19. You have to overstate, and since then I always have done. It's always, again, keeping your head up. I think that one of the biggest things that any business owner will face in any industry is don't put yourself down. There are plenty of people out there that can do that for you. Always sort of stay true to yourself, because the hardest thing is when you don't know how others are doing and you're having a tough time, you start questioning if it's you that's done something wrong. And it isn't fair to do that to yourself, because there's no guarantee it is you that's done anything wrong. The market at the minute, we know, in the antiques world and the interiors world, is a little bit harder than it has been. Not to the point where I'm concerned, touch wood, but it's a case of you got to just keep your head up for now. Keep working hard, keep doing what we do, keep loving what we do. And it would be great if there was some open chat where people could just be honest and just say, look, it's been tough for this last 2 weeks. So at least you're not on your own in thinking, God, why is no one liking social media posts? Why is no one in the shop? And it's never anything you've done, unless you've done something totally crazy. It's always going to be just the way the market is, and you just got to keep rolling with the punches in that sense. So that's the strongest. Sorry, go on.
Do you find that I mean, there's obviously the downside of the socials, right? Because it's we always put out those best versions of ourselves, or everything's going great, but no one's really talking about they've had a really tough couple of weeks. I think that's kind of the other side of it, is where this is kind of why I started the podcast, because I was there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. Like I know because I'm doing it and I'm like, oh, this is really hard. And like but no one's really talking about it. Like, oh, look, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. And we're not really like open about the fact that we're not sharing the information. And I think almost feel like it would be beneficial for people to be like, oh yeah, but I had some success. I felt that way last year and I did this and that might, go back to the advice thing.
No, absolutely. I think you've done well to start this podcast for this purpose. I must admit, I think that's a great thing because it gives people the opportunity to just talk very openly about the pros and cons of business. And I have friends who are in employment and they think it's easy to be self-employed because you have all the freedom and all the time. In a sense, you do, but you have to cover yourself in that time. You've got to make sure you don't just let things slide. Everything then falls on you. There's no other person to take the hit if anything goes wrong. So there is. Yes, many benefits to being self-employed. That's why I am self-employed. But it doesn't come easy to anyone at any time, no matter how long you've been in business. I wouldn't have thought. And having something to be honest, something like this to be open and honest, I think is such a great thing. I think it is hard for people to sort of, show face a little bit and sort of lose that face and say, it has been tricky in a public manner because then people sometimes think it raises questions on the sort of level of that particular brand, and they think, oh, if that brand's not doing that well, is it really worth investing in? And you don't want to ever think you're jeopardizing your own business. But I say everything goes up and down. I'm very, very fortunate that I've been around 10 years and have touched wood again, cemented myself in an industry where we're recognized. So we do get repeat. We do know where we're going to be pretty much each month. So that's great, and everyone I think aspires to that. So I'm very, very privileged to have that already. Thankfully, that doesn't change. But yeah, you do go through those moments where you think, "What have I done this month for it to be that little bit less?" Or "What have I done to not please the person that I thought were going to buy that piece of furniture? Why have they now gone cold on me?" There is still that as well every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. It's so true. And I think that we've had clients sometimes who are like, "Oh, I said this quote, and the guy never came back to me," and I'm like, "It's probably not you." Like. They probably have stuff going on in their life. Just follow up with them, sometimes people, but it is hard. You do take it a little bit personally as well. Cause you're like, oh, I just, you don't want to work with me. Oh, but I was going to ask you as well. Cause you've been going 10 years and I kind of have this like theory. I haven't really proved it to myself yet, but I have this theory that like anything worthwhile takes 10 years, like anything like really like, to build something to get kind of through it and over the hump and then sort of go up, go into sort of a higher trajectory. I always feel like that it takes about 10 years, right? It's that sort of 10,000 hours vibe. But like, when did you feel like you really hit that point in your business where you're like, okay, I've got like, we're starting to sort of get that momentum going?
I think honestly, it was through COVID, which I always feel slightly nervous to mention because of very much the ups and downs for a lot of people throughout that. But for us, it was a time where people were starting to look at their houses. They had time to, if they wanted to forget about the world for as long as they could, which we all were trying, your house was where you were. And to make it beautiful was your aim. And it was getting around to those jobs you'd put back doing for 6 months to a year. You finally could get around to doing them. So COVID, maybe 6 months into COVID, so probably just after that first sort of lockdown, we started to see a bit more regularity. And literally, and I genuinely mean this, every year that I've been there, so that's 6 years-ish in business, every month have been up, down, up, down. There's been zero consistency, which is a really tricky thing as well. It's great, you still survive on that, but it's a case of like you want to make plans to progress forward. You want consistency. You want to hit a level. I'm not stretching. I'm not saying it needs to be up here, but you just want to hit a maintained number because then you know where you stand each month. And for the first time after 6 years, COVID had given us a glimpse of that. Don't get me wrong, since COVID has finished, and obviously the world has gone a little bit in the other direction, in the economies and wars and all that, which we won't go into, but that has changed that consistency a little bit. There is still months where it's up here and down here. So that consistency has gone again, but we're at a new level of vary, I suppose. So I think COVID was the time I saw a slight consistency increase, which was great. I think that's when TallBoy and Series had the shop, just took the shop on. So that meant that the brand has got its recognition for being somewhere physical, which I think was, like to say, that was my original plan. That's my original thought process. I hope that would work, and it sort of did. But you're right. it takes time. Nothing can be done quickly unless you're extremely lucky. The only thing that would make you be more successful in less than probably 6 to 10 years is luck, I would say. Hard work. We all work hard. We all work damn hard to get to where we want to be. And I think that, yes, if you do get successful in 4 years rather than 6, fair play. You're doing really well. I'm never going to begrudge anybody that. But it does take time. Time served is such a strong philosophy to have in business, because you've proved to people you can survive. You've proved that you can grow, and the people have watched you grow as well. And I think that is something that when you're 10 years down the line, you sort of forget about the sort of first 3 or 4 years of how hard it was to get to something like a business. But then after that bit of time, you sort of go, yeah, okay, right, I can see where I'm going now. Things come a little bit clearer, never straightforward, never obvious, and never easy, but you know a little bit more about where you're going. So yeah, time served 10 years, absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah, I completely agree with your answer. I mean, I just think it's like, I think we're in our 4th year now, and I definitely think this has been the hardest year.
Right.
Like, it's been the hardest year because I think when you're first starting, you say yes to everything, you graft, you work really hard, but then you get to a certain point where you're like, this isn't, the way I've been doing it isn't working anymore. And the people I'm working with maybe aren't the right, maybe it's not the right fit. And then you have to kind of and there's this sort of, I think it's like there's a point in your business when you start shifting. It's like the old ways change, but the new ways haven't really picked up. And so you're in this kind of like weird limbo space. Yeah, it can be really tough. It's really tough.
It is tough. And I should say, obviously, it's not maybe always look based to be successful on a shorter term by any means. I think that you do. I think it is. I think luck plays a big part in a lot of things throughout the whole of business. Never mind just in the first few, 20 years in the line. That's still that luck that a contract lands on your desk, whatever, is sometimes luck. You don't always get something for necessarily working for it. Hopefully, you put yourself into a position where you've worked to get to there that you can then handle that. But everything's hard, and you can be successful with it within the first couple of years. You don't have to make necessarily a profit from it. As long as you can survive, support what you're doing, and enjoy what you're doing. They're big wins. That's success in people's mind. I think that's everyone's success is very different to each other. There's not just one way of doing it. Like I say, just being able to fund your lifestyle by doing something that you love, regardless of what turnover profit you have, is success. And that's such a.
Would you say that's your? Would you say that's your definition of success then? Is being able to do it that way?
I think so. I think it's do what you love was always what I wanted to do. Like I say, starting out TallBoy Interiors and now Form, I never really had an end goal for either business. I probably do have more so for Form because I've been around for a long time now. But same with TallBoy Interiors. 19, not really knowing how it's going to go, knowing full well that if it went wrong, we could just sort of fall back on employment or university or whatever. I did it because I loved it. And I still love it. I mean that when I say it, I absolutely love what I do. So yeah, success to me is I can keep doing what I love. Okay, there's overheads and there's things to cover, and there has to be an element of that side that you have to be successful in. But yeah, absolutely, to be self-employed and be able to function being self-employed and live not comfortably but happily is absolutely that's my definition of success.
That's lovely. I'm with you on that. I think there's so often when we have these conversations with people, it's like we ask them this question, we ask everyone on the pod, like, what's your definition of success? And not one of them has ever said, I want to be super wealthy and I want to take over the world, or they don't have global domination on the mind. It's really about this. And I think this is probably the part of being a creative entrepreneur is actually you just want to create something that you love, do the thing that you love, and be able to live well off of it. It's like it's pretty simple. It's not actually easy to get there,
No, it's simple in the theory of it, and it's a challenge every day to get there. But everyone's got their own motivations. But you don't go into the antiques trade to become wealthy and rich and famous. They don't follow that, unfortunately. Really, and again, unless very rarely you get a TV show off the back of it. But
I was going to say, I could see that.
I love the fact that there's those out there that can see me on social media that now know the name of me and TallBoy Interiors and hopefully follow along. In a sense, that's sort of that's why I'm now doing it, is to keep building that brand, keep building the name, and we'll see where it takes us. And as long as I can keep doing it, then I'm happy.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Well, that's a good way to end, I think. We've got some quick fire questions we always ask everyone just to keep them on their toes, just for fun. So, I can't really ask that one because you haven't done your own projects yet, but I think it will happen because I think it's only a matter of time. If your business had a mascot, what would it be and why?
I think it'd be the Yorkshire Rose. That is where I'm from. It's my I'm biased. I love Yorkshire. I feel Yorkshire to me is an honest place to live, full of the hardworking people of the world. And I think that to me, Yorkshire is TallBoy Interiors. It's not an animal, it's not a person, but I think the Yorkshire Rose would be my mascot.
Love it. What's your current, sort of in the industry in terms of interior design or architecture practices? Is there anyone that you really admire for their work?
So many. I mean, I could argue he's maybe not quite a friend yet, I hope, in time, but you got Max Rollett, who's a star who's an older gentleman, probably, I don't know if he's in his 50s or so, but he's been around forever. Everyone knows him as sort of one of the leaders of British interior design. And I get on with him well. I've met him in France a few times, sold to him in the past as well. And I think he is just, his style is impeccable, his taste is impeccable, the way he markets it. And him as a person is what I would aspire to be. If I can be half him, that would be amazing.
Oh, I hope he hears this and then he can be like, oh, Matt. Form or function?
I'm a sucker for form.
You're a sucker for
form.
It's
the name of business, to be clear. But form. I prefer things to look good than be good.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, okay. Well, Matt, if people want to find TallBoy and Form, where do they find you guys?
Social media is the first port of call. TallBoy Interiors on social media, and Form by TallBoy is the second social media. Mainly Instagram, to be fair. And both websites, tallboyinteriors.co.uk and formbytallboy.co.uk. Always fully stocked with pieces, always changing, and on both social medias, there's a lot more to it than just pictures of antiques. There's more behind the scenes, a little bit about what we get up to all the time. So I think it's worth a follow, at least worth a check out anyway.
I mean, I've been following you for a while, a little bit, and I'm like, oh, it's some good stuff coming out there. It's really good. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really lovely to chat with you. And thanks so much.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. Speak soon.
Speak soon.
Thanks again to Matt Dixon of TallBoy Interiors. His passion for great design is clear throughout our entire conversation, and I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. It was so great to meet him. Once again, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, all those sort of things, so you can get notified about new conversations that are coming up. Episodes drop every other Tuesday. Until then, be well. Understory was produced by Cloudfields and Kieran Fowler. The music is by Abez, and the branding is by Joe Jones. See you in a couple weeks.